Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. I don't know why everyone loves that part, but I stopped doing it. People said I really like that. I don't know why. I just do it. So thanks for tuning into the podcast, the Chris Voss Show, and welcome once again to another episode of whatever we're doing with this podcast. I don't know. You probably know more about what's going on than I do because you have to listen to it. I just do it. Anyway, thanks to all of our great sponsors and people who support the show. You should go to youtube.com/Chris Voss. Subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Be sure to follow us on Periscope, iTunes for the podcast, Google Play for the podcast, and now on TuneIn app, so you can take and download it as well. And I'm sure you can probably get us on all the other cool podcast apps that are out there. Be sure to subscribe so I can keep bringing you awesome, cool, successful, and amazingly intelligent guests like the one I have on today. Today, we once again, for a second, I think you might be closing in on one of those SNL records. You're the second person on the show. A few more appearances. And you might be one of the top guests. We'll have to get you like one of those SNL robes, Tim. So welcome, Tim Forrest from timforrest.com. I'll give you a background. Hey, Tim. Tim is a consumer product brand distribution visionary with over 30 years of experience. He's transformed businesses by optimizing marketing, sales systems, and driving innovation leadership. If you go to his page at timforrest.com, you can look at his case studies and see some of the, what I believe are Fortune 500 or Fortune 100 companies you work with, Tim.
Well, yeah. I work with non-revenue startups, billion-dollar companies. I've worked with a third of the Fortune 50, actually, as far as some of the clients. But I love working with entrepreneurs and people that have innovative products. So if they've got an innovative product that they want to bring to consumers, that's something I get really excited about and interested in working with.
Well, thanks for being a guest the second time on the show. So let's talk about some of the things we were talking about before that you'd like to talk about to help really share with people that are entrepreneurs, whether they're small or whether they're startups, in how they can be more successful. What is some of the experience that you have that is great to share with them?
Well, I can jump straight into tactics. We don't have to start. We're on social media. Social media is fantastic, but there's 5 other. I've worked on so many different projects, and I was just thinking about this earlier before we came on. There's 5 other marketing tactics that I've used to drive millions of dollars in sales for my clients, and they all begin with the letter S, and none of them are really social media. The first one is swag, and when I say that, I think the original social media tool in my repertoire for some of my clients has been the T-shirt, and so that was before Facebook, before the internet. The other ones just really quickly, sampling, sponsorships. I managed, I worked with NASCAR. One of my projects included the Butterfinger NASCAR, so sponsorships, and then stickers. That's another one. Just simply stickers, handing out stickers to customers that buy your product or use it. And then one of the most important things that so many of my clients overlook is signage. And that, the old-timey signage, either on the outside of a building or at a location or at the retail spot. And those, before we want to spend money and invest money that returns to the business and to the brand with social media. But at the same time, we don't want to overlook or neglect those items that are going to drive tremendous value. And when I say value, I'm talking these 5 simple programs have driven literally millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars for my clients, and when applied into their businesses.
Cool. Yeah, being an entrepreneur and all the different stuff that goes into it. There's a lot of different marketing features that are out there. In fact, what's funny is I haven't posted this yet on Facebook, but the other day I actually got a set of yellow pages delivered to my front door. Or some people know it, the table leveler.
Right. Yeah.
But I was just shocked that someone was out hand delivering yellow page, and it's quite thick actually. It's still about that thick, and people are still buying ads for something.
Wow. Yeah, that's. I've not advised my clients to. We've not created any Yellow Pages ads, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I see the book; it gets thinner and thinner each year. But I'm shocked that they still put money into that and bring it out there. I'm not really sure.
It's pretty amazing to me. I remember the old days. In fact, one of my good friends who's a great social media attorney. His name is Mitch, and I'm horrible with names, but he's a great guy. But it used to be like with attorneys, if you didn't own that back cover of the Yellow Pages, like you were really screwed. And if you didn't have like the first 3 or 4 pages of full page ads in the Yellow Pages, you just were gonna be, I don't know, eating top ramen as an attorney, pretty much.
Right.
And so it seemed to be that was like the main mode of marketing that you had.
Yeah, and that's what's so, I mean, for me, that's what's so important is activating new customers. A lot of my work, we want to keep or exist, as we mentioned in our last discussion, Chris, we want to keep the business that we have. And social media does such a good job of that. But for consumer product goods, to activate new customers, a lot of times social media doesn't do that for me, particularly if they're not able to buy the product online and go directly to it. If they have to get in a car, go to a retail store, or go to an event or something of that nature, there's so many opportunities between where the person is as far as time, and then also the physical, getting into the car and going to the location, that we're potentially going to miss that sale. So a lot of times it provides value for existing customers. Also, it can help for brand awareness, but we've got to trigger the brand. We've got to trigger the purchase at retail. We've got to trigger the purchase closer to the retail location.
Yeah. It's so what's some of your advice on getting new clients, marketing? A lot of my audience are people that are starting their own businesses or have their own businesses, have their own private small consulting agencies. Mm-hmm. And one of the things they do struggle with is getting new clients. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I see, especially when it comes to like info marketing that I see online. Like the big thing that I always see ads at now on Facebook is how you can get clients that will pay you $10,000 a month, and all this sort of info that.
I'm very fortunate in that area. I think I shared with you, this is my 20th year. I just celebrated my 20th anniversary of my consulting firm. The average.
Congratulations, bud.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's
average
awesome.
The average consulting company in America, a small consulting, doesn't make it 10 years. So it's very unusual that a small consulting company will survive and go forward. And
I think I'm at 7 now, 7 or 8.
Yeah, part of that
it depends on which segment of business, because before that I consulted with banks and mortgages and stuff. So that was like a whole different consulting thing. But I guess technically I've been consulting for probably 10 plus years.
Yeah. So, what I've done and what we discussed this briefly in the other one is my success has been putting out information and helping people become aware that I exist. It's not, I've not been able to go out and solicit business. As a consultant, you're not going to be able to negotiate contracts and convince people of your preeminent positioning within your category if you're going out making phone calls and trying to contact and make people aware of you. They've got to be aware of you before they contact you. So they have to know your abilities. They have to know what it is, who you are before they reach out to you. So, for instance, I had a very, some people would say my website and my YouTube channel was, it's not the fanciest, it's not the latest technology, it's not, it doesn't, it doesn't have the fanciest edits, all the physical aspects of doing great videography and having, a solid YouTube channel. But what it does have, it has content and it has the language that food entrepreneurs understand, because I work in the food vertical primarily. So when food entrepreneurs hear and see the ideas that I'm presenting and the problems that I'm solving, they instantly recognize that I'm a potential solution for their problem. And so it kind of clicks in their head, and then they reach out to me. So let's take an example of what I'm talking about. Just so happens one of my clients, I've shared with you that I work for a couple of the Coca-Cola. I worked for one of the brothers his grandfather invested in Coca-Cola, generations ago, and he's a wealthy kid. But anyway, he decided he wanted to get into the food business. He had lunch with Martha Stewart in New York, and so he decided to start doing some Googling on the internet and read an article that I had published with some ideas. And so he's like, oh, I need to reach out to Tim. And so he reached out to me. We started talking about what he wanted to accomplish. And sure enough, we ended up contracting and working together. But that process to get him as a client became literally was about an 8 to 10 month journey, in that I wrote the article more than 10 months prior, and then about 11 months I created a program that he would entertain, and we ended up working. He was one of the, at the time, it was unimaginable. This was over 10 years. This is about 10 years ago. At the time, it was unimaginable I would have a consulting program that was so expensive. In my mind, I was selling programs that were much smaller. And this program, again, I would not hire a consultant. I didn't have the resources. He was, he had a home in New York. He had a home in Beverly Hills. So if my consulting program didn't match what he considered appropriate, he never would have hired me. I mean, the guy probably spends, I'm sure he spends 10 grand, 3 grand on a dinner. And so to hire a consultant for his life dreams of what he wanted to accomplish on television, that would not, I needed to have the appropriate programs for him. And I had that luckily through a mentor who advised me about a year before to create these programs. And I was so nervous. It's like, how can I ask for this much money for a consulting project? But it absolutely worked. And that was how I ended up working.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point. I come from a brick and mortar business, as we talked about back in the day. When I started my companies in the early 90s, you had to, just to get in the door with opening a business, you had to pay some pretty huge fees of licensing, sometimes for specialized industries. I think our first company was regulated by the consumer regulatory agencies that oversaw the tariffs from trucking agencies that were regulated at that time. This is before Bill Clinton deregulated the trucking industry, and we were lumped into the same company bases that had to report and do different due diligence stuff with consumer. There were state agencies that oversaw these things, and we were lumped in with transportation, which also included like the airlines. And airlines have to provide what are called these tariff documents. And these big, huge things that have oversight by government bodies on them. We were subject to the same sort of thing. So it's very costly to go into business for us because we had to pay these huge licensing fees. We had to have extra insurance to meet the government's demands. And then the paperwork was off the chart. And then being a new company that we were, we could see that Delta Airlines could afford to create these giant tariffs and turn them in on a regular basis. For us, it was a whole other thing, being a little two-man operation. And for years, we built our companies, and people would ask me for advice and consulting and stuff. And back then, I had my companies that were businesses, and I wasn't going to consult with you to teach you my secrets because I wasn't going to have you compete with my companies. And then once social media came out, sort of this new sort of economy, I had to kind of switch my brain from someone who went, I can't teach you how to do that. That's what's called proprietary information. There are certain trade secrets that we hold, like KFC's recipe or freaking Coca-Cola's recipe, that's supposed to be in a vault somewhere or whatever. How to poison people. Who knew that had to be in a vault? Just drink some arsenic. It'll be the same as drinking Coke in the long run. I probably shouldn't say that. I'm probably going to sue now, aren't I? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mean, you're talking about consumer products. When Coke came out, just like Pepsi and Dr. Pepper and these sodas, I mean, they started.
People. I'm just being funny.
I know, but I just wanted to share a funny thought. They were functional beverages at the time when they came out. They're no longer considered that. And so now we have these new different functional beverages, and the whole industry's going in. But I understand what you're saying. We were talking about proprietary and secret information versus now let's share it and put it out there on the internet and let people see it.
Yeah, and to Coke's credit, they've actually invested in water and much cleaner sort of beverages that they know consumers want to eat a little more healthy. I lost 70 pounds by not drinking pop anymore. So I think wow. Even the parody of my joke on them, I think I can testify that there had some sort of effect. But you're right. So anyway, I digress. But I lived through that paradigm of where that's proprietary. And even then, I still have a few state secrets amongst the corporation stuff that I do, where even my clients will ask, how do you do that? And I'll be like, that's proprietary. And that's the only reason that you keep paying your bill every month. That and the fact that I do the work that you don't want to do. But what you bring up is, of course, this new economy and this new way that you have to create content, that you have to build it sometimes before they'll come. And you have to show people that you are an expert in your field by the content that you provide or the actions that you take and do. Right. When people see me or come to me for business, for me to market them, they can see everything online. They can read the articles of being Forbes or being a top influencer of influencers, all these different lists that I've earned my way on, that I really didn't set out to go, I want to make some lists of the top whatever. In fact, most times I never thought I even cared or whether I was the top list. But my first client actually came to me for the social media consulting business. I consulted with banks and done mortgages and all of our other companies before that, before the Great Recession destroyed everything. And my first client for consulting for social media was the CEO of a company. And he saw me kicking ass on social media. And he came to me and he said, we see that you're kicking butt. We want to know how you're doing it. And I was like, what the hell? Are somebody paid to know this? Really? I can get paid for this stupid crap that I'm doing? Right. And to me, it wasn't that hard because, like you, I've always lived in sales and marketing. It's when you say social media, it's media that's social. Mm-hmm. It's nothing. It's not much deeper than that, really, when it comes down to it. And if you're a marketer, you just know the background. But yeah, there is this thing where you do have to provide that content where people can go and look, and people can validate you, and people can see if you're worthy of their money and see if you have the rep. And I'm fortunate enough now that I've worked hard enough that that people can. I can just send potential clients a link and go, there you are. And if you want to know more, feel free to Google me.
Right.
It's all there.
Yeah, I do that. I do the exact. I said, put in my name. Just go to Google, do Tim Forrest and food, and Google, and then there's so much you can see about what I do and what I've done in my vertical.
And just send me your money, because that's pretty much how it goes down. It's like I give them a proposal. Here's the link. Google me. Send me your money.
But you're not contacting them. They're coming to you asking you that question.
Most times, yeah. Sometimes I'll come across someone, but even then, that's through a relationship of them swimming into my circle somehow. Right. A lot of times I have them approaching me on email from their PR basis or whatever, and I'm like, there actually is a better way to do this. Sometimes there's people who've approached me to review a product where I go look at what they're doing in online marketing, and I'm like, really? This is why you need to do some better things. Honestly, I've had some very powerful companies that are worth millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars in sales revenue. And I go to their Twitter account and there's 1,000 followers on their Twitter account. And you're like, you're a name brand that's a household name that everyone knows, and you have 1,000, 4,000 followers on your Twitter account. What's going on there?
Exactly.
What's going on there? Are you still running Yellow Pages ads in the phone book that gets delivered to my house?
Probably. A funny story is, so I ended up working for the Coca-Cola, his name's Alex, but I started working for Alex, and we worked. And then later on, he wanted to get into, he wanted to have his own television show with him around his food brand that we were developing. And so he introduces me to a guy in Hollywood. His name's Robert Thorne, and he was the agent, the guy that made the Olsen twins so much money with licensing. And so the story, and we worked together, and it was an exciting. We did some exciting stuff. But the funniest thing about reaching out and contacting people that he shared with me. He shared that when he was working with the Olsen twins, the way he ended up making them so much money is that he was calling New York. So he got a wrong number. And he accidentally got in touch. He accidentally called a sales agent in New York, happened to be at the Empire State Building, that was a clothing broker to Walmart. And so he called the wrong guy, and they just started talking. He said, well, what do you do? And the guy says, well, I sell to Walmart. And then Robert, he said, well, hey, maybe there's an opportunity for us. And he introduced the Olsen twins and their brand. And then that's really what created the juggernaut of that brand, which,
holy crap,
a billion,
wrong freaking number.
A wrong number, $1 billion. Yeah, over $1 billion in brand revenue from that. Yeah, it's just crazy.
That is crazy, man. And that's one of those things as an entrepreneur where you can have a lot of hard work, you can have a little bit of luck, but sometimes you need a little bit of luck.
Right. Yeah.
And you've got to be able to be attuned to that as well. I mean, that's really what he did. And I can tell you stories of that in my life. I'm sure you can in your life, where you work your butt off, but because you got your antennas up and because you're listening and you're thinking of possibilities, you're thinking of options, you're constantly open to your business model and stuff, and you're not closed in like this. I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for, but you kind of almost karma can find stuff in the universe that can help you a little bit.
Exactly. Another thing that I do with clients, and I would ask you, Chris, so think about your last 10 customers that paid you, that paid an invoice. Just take your last 10 invoices that have been paid and just simply go through those and said, okay, where did I meet this guy? Or how did this person come into my world? What is it that brought him into my world? I mean, that's just such a simple thing. With Dyson vacuums, they were a client of mine, and that's what we did. That's what I did. I helped almost double in 1 year, almost helped double sales for their industrial division. And
wow.
we ended up finding the largest single account from this strategy for the division. And what we did is we just took the invoice. I just took the invoices from their clients for 1 month, for the prior month. And then we just kind of, I said, what are the largest, which ones are most profitable? And then we just simply found who they were. And then we built a real simple spreadsheet, a database, and shared it with sales reps. And then they just went out and knocked. I mean, I hate to say it was that simple. And I'm not saying they went out and knocked on doors, because obviously they're much more professional than that, but they started the process of reaching out and then setting up appointments. And that resulted in that kind of a turnaround. Just that simple little technique of just pulling your best customers out and then finding a like audience, like with YouTube videos, you do Facebook marketing, you look for, you mirror audiences or find a like audience. But the point being, you find similar business operations and you just build a spreadsheet and contact them if you're in a business-to-business situation.
And you bring up a good point. Sometimes you never know where you're going to get money from. I've had clients for years, as you have, I'm sure. My oldest client for the social media consulting business is going on, I think, 6 or 7 years now. Originally, when I picked him up, I'll never forget, I had gotten a bunch of emails from people saying, we want to hire you, give us a proposal, all that sort of BS. And I was just starting out. So I wrote a bunch of proposals for a bunch of people that emailed me. They went nowhere. And I'll never forget, to this day, seeing his email come across. And I actually didn't answer it for a couple days. And I went, oh God, this is going to be another thing. And I was actually kind of getting ready to quit. I was just like, everyone just wants my pricing. They're just asking for proposals and not doing anything. This is just stupid. And it was very early days back then, and no one knew where anything was going. It was the Wild West. And so after sitting on his email for 2 days, I thought, well, I'll give it one last shot. I'll answer his email. He's been my client now for 7 years, and he's a great person. He's pretty awesome. I'd probably work for him for free, but don't tell him that. But he's been a great client for years. So I try and take care of him as best we can. But that's an example of where you don't know what's going on.
Right.
I remember when we were shoestringing our first courier company called Silver Streak Express back in the day. And my friend, my
I love the name. I love that name, Silver Streak Express.
Yeah, you know what it's from. It's from the movie.
Right.
And so I started the business with my lifelong friend that I thought of as a brother for a lot of years. He had been working for a blood urine sample, stool sample, one of these blood laboratory testing labs. It was ARUP in Salt Lake City, Utah. And we would pick up blood, urine, stool samples, plasma from the hospitals, take them to the laboratory testing so they could find out what was going on with people internally. Sometimes we were taking, and they were also a blood bank, so sometimes we were taking blood from the laboratory back to the hospitals. And so that's how we started our business, was with this sort of laboratory thing. Early on, we acquired a customer list from one of our competitors. And it was one of the first thing we did in the first week or two was we came across this list. And we noticed that there was a broad base of people that they were working for. And I remember my partner at the time was like, we have to focus on this blood business, transporting blood. It was a crazy business too, because you would get a call from an emergency room hospital and you had to race over to their offices, pick up the blood sample, race it to the laboratory. And then many times someone was bleeding out in the emergency room. They didn't know why. Sometimes they were bleeding internally. They didn't know why. And sometimes you had someone's life in your hands in that little bag of blood. Wow. And so expediency of being able to get that to the laboratory within an hour or two was super important. But it was very disruptive because I think we were working 18-hour days. We would get calls, in the middle of the night. You'd have to get up and go do this run. So it was a very challenging business. But I remember one time we got just a little bit of money at the very beginning, and I said, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to send out 100 mailers. And I'm going to take the list that we have from our competitors, and I'm just going to hit the broad base of the different industries and see what happens. But I'm gonna scatter it like a shotgun effect.
Right.
And so I think I sent to 6 out of the 100 mail pieces, little mail pieces we sent out. 6 or 12 of them were mortgage companies.
Yes.
And I'd seen them on the list. And of course my partner was like, that's stupid. We can't go on this. And there was a lot of attorneys too. I'll bring that up. And so what we did is we mailed that out, and no one replied except for the mortgage companies.
Yes.
And we went, okay. And so then we started focusing on mortgage companies, and we discovered there was a really huge need, and that there was a great business that we could build that was like UPS or FedEx that wasn't calling us in the middle of the freaking night, getting us out of bed, getting us racing around with blood that sometimes had hepatitis in it, where they would have to say, by the way, this is a blood sample you got. If this breaks in your car, you got a real big problem here. Yeah, that sort of stuff. Oh, wow. Some of the blood we tested was, I'm sure, AIDS tainted. I don't, you have to put a lot of work to get that into your system. But people that had other diseases that were contagious, that they were in their things. We had bad Ziploc bags that they'd given us sometimes that would leak during transport, or you would see it leaking as they were handing it to you. You're like, no, you need to rewrap that. But I digress. So what we found was that there was these mortgage companies, and so even I believe my partner at the time, if I recall rightly, he was like, I know we need to focus on this, and I'm like, no, I think there's something here. We need to focus on the mortgage companies. So we did that, and we built a great business servicing mortgage companies, and we moved away from the blood business because of the liabilities of it, and also we targeted hitting up attorneys, because back then attorneys needed their documents hand delivered to the courts, back and forth, all the different documentation they did. And this is back when even faxes were still just kind of catching on. And so there was still like a need for that. One of the problems you have with attorneys is not a lot of small attorneys pay their bills because they know they can give you a lot of crap before they finally have to pay them. At least back in the 90s, that was the case. And so a lot of our courier competitor friends would have these stories of having to go shake down attorneys and trying to get paid and the hustle and bustle. And so we weren't really excited to go in that business. So just by listening and being attuned and scattering our sort of marketing, we picked up the segment of mortgage business and we expanded to where pretty much that's all we ever did. We built a great innovative company around mortgage business. And after a few years, I actually said, I want to go into the mortgage business because I don't want to be in blue collar. I want to be in white collar. And we started a successful mortgage business that went on for pretty much 20 years until the big recession killed a lot of marketing or mortgage companies. And so I made a lot of money and a career off that for 20 years just from that 100 mail. And I remember sitting, typing the letters and copying them and licking the stamps and envelopes to mail those babies out. And we had just enough money to, send out 100 mail pieces. That's how rich we were.
Chris, this is so important. And what you're sharing, success leaves clues. And what you're sharing is so important in that the mortgage companies didn't hire you because you had a pretty logo or you had the best designer or there was the great font or the color selection or the size of the letter you sent to them. What they were looking at was a solution to their problem. They felt pain and they just said, maybe Chris can fix our pain for us. And so that was what's so important. That's what you discovered as a pain. Mm-hmm. And that's what so much of my work with my clients, I think obviously I think I'm smart in certain areas. I want to be successful. But so much of what I've done is because I've learned from customers, just like what you did. So I went to different segments. And then where I had the success, I just kind of blew that up. I didn't know ahead of time that I was going to find success like you found with a mortgage company, or I found with a club store segment, or with, say, theme parks for a particular customer or client. So it's so important that you do that work, and you really can't figure that out ahead of time often. It's a matter of actually doing the work and having 4 other channels turn you down. And when I say turn you down, they didn't respond quickly to your email. You're not your email, but your card that you sent out. Those 100 cards, and you discovered a problem, and that's what's so important to entrepreneurism and businesses and anything I've ever done is I'm solving someone's problem, and that's where they're most likely to give me money if I can solve that problem.
I'll tell you another story that's very interesting about that business. We had some of the first clients that actually responded to that mailer that we sent out, that first 100-piece mailer. The original mortgage companies that responded to that mailer were our clients for 13 years. And the only reason that business ever closed was because I moved from Utah to Las Vegas and I didn't want to live in Utah anymore. And I ran it for about a year or two after moving. And then finally, with cars and driving and the internet and not handling so much paper, I could just see what the future was going to be. And I finally shut it down. Otherwise, that business would probably still be around today if I really cared. The problem is I hate the state of Utah and I hate all that goes on there. It's a beautiful state if you want to ski or you want to look at mountains, but the rest of the time, go someplace where you can get a drink and have
I just took the kids to Zion National Park, and then also we went to Bryce Canyon. Oh my gosh, we loved it.
But so one of the things I was going to say there was when we first, because you alluded to this earlier, where people weren't looking at us going, well, you're some, ultra slick, ultra financed, ultra money, ultra assets. We didn't have nice Federal Express vans, UPS trucks, we didn't have uniforms. We looked like a couple of Joes. I mean, I did show up in a suit back then. But one thing we did is I'll never forget, I was going out, and the base in Utah is pretty much very religious. And they don't smoke. And one of the things that 2 of the major couriers that were the dominant forces in the marketplace were doing was they were hiring these smoking sort of cabbie driver sort of people. And they would smoke in the cars, and the smoke would, get into the packages. And so when they come and deliver a package, or when they'd show up, the smoke would be rolling off the package and rolling off them. And because they have a huge religious population up there that doesn't smoke. And smoke, I mean, even if you're not religious up there, just smoking up there just really is the most popular thing.
Right.
And so I remember one time we were meeting with some clients that were in the mortgage business. This was back when we first started out off that 100 mailer. And they were looking at us going, okay, so you guys are a brand new company. You've been really honest about how new you are. And we're kind of concerned as to like, will you be here tomorrow? And can you really deliver and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of the sales deals that I did were just basically on my chutzpah, on my ability to sound credible, feel credible, and sell people on my character more so than my business.
Exactly.
But I remember in one of the meetings, they said, we have concerns about you. They said, but we have one of these problems with the delivery guys. And it was just kind of a side thing that came up with one of the girls. And she says, we are tired of the smoking packages. I'm like, what are you talking about? And she explained to me that, when the drivers come in, it smells like an ashtray, and their packages smell like an ashtray long after they left because they've been in their cars for so long.
Boom.
And so, I told them, I said, well, none of us smoke. I don't see us taking it up anytime soon. And if that's really a concern, we'll make sure never have drivers that smoke. And we stole a lot of business with that sort of small angle. I'm not kidding you. We actually bankrupted. I don't know that it was us that bankrupted them, but I know we took enough clients away from the 3 big major companies. One of them was the Wells Fargo Pony Express service, which was a nationwide company. We bankrupted their little chapter because we stole so much business. And we created some innovations that were pretty unique with a mailbox system, where we didn't have to be like FedEx and UPS, and we had to show up with 20 trucks across the state at 5 p.m. and show up before 10 a.m. We had this huge mailbox system we created that was pretty innovative. That was actually based off a company in California that still does it to this day. And so we innovated pretty amazingly there down the line. But yeah, one of the early benefits was I sat in a proposal meeting, and one of the secretaries made a comment about how we're tired of the smoke. And I said, hey, we don't smoke. And they're like, sold, we'll try you.
And then just set it up in your business, set that as a policy so that you can continue success.
And if you don't think we use that for marketing, we've met on proposals before. We're like, hey, we know you use XYZ company. Let me ask you something. Are you tired of the smoke?
Yeah, you guys are brilliant.
And they went, but it was also part of that listening. If I would have ignored her comment and concern and just focused on like, okay, here's our thing and you've got to buy our thing, that made all the difference in the world. And like I say, 13 years of money that we got from those companies. They were on recurring contracts. Right. We had clients that I didn't talk to maybe every couple of years when some stupid thing happened with their package, and we'd give them a free month because we cared. There were some clients that I never ever talked to or ever met. They hired us. And then what was interesting about that business was their employees, when the employees would leave the mortgage companies, they go to other mortgage companies. Okay. And they would call us from the new mortgage company and go, hey, I'm no longer there. I'm over here. And we loved you so much. I've told them that we're picking you up over here. And we literally had this army of referrals that came from employees switching things. And never in a million years, when I sat down and wrote the original business model, would I have ever anticipated any of that sort of thing. And I think that's, what you say, an entrepreneur has to be open to that sort of thread through the universe that comes to them. Or can come to them.
Yeah, the serendipity.
You're
absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Serendipity.
You've got to do so much work, and to set the table so that these opportunities can fall into your lap.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're religious, and there's some people, when we use the word serendipity, there's the other side of it that people say that, well, it's either my destiny that I'll be successful, or it's maybe someone's will that I'll be successful, or maybe if I do something to appease that person's will, I'll get something from it. There are things in some of those tomes of religion that say, some sort of being might take care of you and give you stuff. And as an entrepreneur, you may think that that's something you have to depend upon as a revenue stream in hopes that you'll be stowed something by whatever person that is. But even in some of these tomes and books, I'll just go ahead and say the Bible, they do say that you've got to work hard and be prepared if you want to hopefully get something from Mr. XYZ in the sky. Right. So there is that, and hard work and a little bit of luck always helps. Hard work helps get you in the position of luck. For years, this is kind of a little bit further down the line of being an entrepreneur, but one of the things that we found, we used to do loans to, and try and, we weren't necessarily bailing out people, but we used to do the real estate broker thing with companies where we basically find small companies who are in trouble. If they were asset rich and cash poor, usually because they had bad business models, we'd come in, either acquire them, take them over, flush them into our business, or sometimes we just add them as additional revenue stream of a different business. I think I've had like 26 different corporations over the years. And we would run these ads that we'd loan money. And so it was really great because you could get people to open their books. But the thing I always found about entrepreneurs going out of business was they set down their business model from the beginning, and they had run that mother into the ground over 2 to 3 years, run through all that money. They had, lost their butt, or sometimes it had worked for a couple of years and then it didn't work, and they didn't change that model, and they just ran that sucker into the ground.
Yeah, I have an example. Do you know what the first product that Samsung, you're very familiar with Samsung, right? What do you think their first product was on the market?
I have no idea.
Dried fish. Dried fish.
That is hilarious.
So imagine how many permutations they had to bring into the market to go from dried fish to incredible smartphones today.
Yeah, I'm sitting here with my AT&T Samsung Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus, and when you say dried fish, that's the funniest thing. That maybe that's why they have the Note 7s catching on fires. They wanted to cook the dried fish
as a barbecue feature.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was wonderful, but the airlines said otherwise. But evidently the airlines are against you cooking your in-flight meal on a Bunsen burner type cell phone.
Totally.
I don't know why. Some people are just kind of particular about that. It's probably the smoke or something. It's like, hey, there's someone. I'm pretty sure that's pretty standard on Russian flights. I've had friends that fly to Russia, and they'll tell me there are goats and chickens on the plane sometimes. So
right. Talking about Samsung, Motorola. You see this picture. I do island sunrises. I've shared with you my ocean seascape photography. I happen to be on the airline. I happen to be riding on the plane, and the guy sitting next to me was from through a divisions of Motorola, and so they were coming out with a calendar, and they had an ad that was coming out, and they ended up buying one of my wave pictures for a small ad in Florida, and they ended up paying for all my camera equipment. That was serendipity. I mean, I had to go out there. Yeah, I had to go out there and do all the work, take all the pictures, but I just happened to be sitting next to the guy that made the decision. He was going to be in the process of picking this picture, and he needed an image, and I happened to be right there, and boom, he picked mine. Luckily, I mean, that's how I ended up getting. It's probably one of the largest single commercial sales of one of my images. It was exciting. Paid for all my equipment I lost. So again, just certainly.
And the other thing I'd like to talk about that you've brought up and that we've been discussing so far is, having to show your wares. Everything can't be 100% proprietary. You've got to share content. You've got to write articles. You've got to have, of course, a website. You've got to have, a valid thing showing you be successful. I get a lot of these things on LinkedIn, especially. That's kind of funny, where people approach you. I'm sure you get them too. Everyone does. And I get these things that I have no invested value where you approach me, not you, but someone approaches me on LinkedIn with this, hey, blah, 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 blast this in your face. I do this. You should do a call with me. Let's schedule a call together. That's the big closing line. And I'm always just like, number one, you haven't even targeted me correctly because I'm not interested in that product. You haven't qualified me as a client or potential client, number one. Number two, I don't know who you are. And if you're someone like me or like you, we probably go do our due diligence and Google you. And when I go to your Twitter accounts, you know, I've had people that are selling like $10,000 sort of consulting trips and packages and stuff. And when I go to their videos, there's 43 people that watch their video from their trust funnel that's supposed to be so successful. When I go to their Twitter account, they have, you know, a couple thousand followers. And when you're selling me that you're this marketing genius who's an incredible social marketing whatever, and I go to your accounts and they're you know, they're ghost towns, I really have to wonder, you know. So people really have to show that they're not only good at what they do, they're successful, but a lot of that content has to be proven and out there because people like me will vet it. I'm sure there's our people that will write a check because some people have a silver tongue, but for the most part, people are can Google you now online, and having that repertoire of success online that people can validate is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And and everyone's they're going to Google. They're going to, before they spend money with anyone, they're going to take your name and Google you and see what you're about.
Yeah.
And what kind of footprint you have.
Yeah. I mean, I can always tell when I do a proposal for somebody, and I'll be like, hey, here's the link. You know, the link's in my signature on all my emails, but here's the link. If you want to know about me, I don't have to write you a 5,000 word pitch. Here's the link. Go to the link. Done. And I can always tell when they respond back on the email that they didn't look at the link because they're still asking me questions about my credibility or my reputation. And I'm like, you didn't really look at that link, did you? You know, I actually have a proposal out right now. It's not a big deal for me to disclose this, but they wrote back to me, I think this morning or yesterday morning, and they said, you said you were a Forbes top 50 person. We can't find you. Which page are you on Forbes? And I'm like, you didn't go to the link, did you? Here's the link. We want your business, but please click the link. Like, exactly. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's the other. I mean, customers don't follow directions. I mean, they live in their world, and you've got to hand everything to them in a silver platter. And that's so much. That's the other thing. You know, so many of my sales and so many of the customer deals that I've helped my clients put together, we've done all the work for the buyer, for the client, for the customer. We do everything for them. So really, all they have to do is approve it and go forward. And so many entrepreneurs and folks they come to the table and expect them to be carried over the finish line by the client or customer. And really, you've got to be jumping over the finish line, you know, wanting to do it, and then they just simply approve it. So just put them in the position of approval, and you'll go so much further than asking them to do anything at all for you or anything for the business. They really are so busy, and that's what has speed, you know, been a speed of business opportunities for a lot of the projects that I've worked on.
Yeah, and a lot of your content, I remember when I was first putting up content back in the day, and a lot of it was really the Wild West. It was very experimental. No one really knew what worked or didn't work. It was a pretty crazy time with social media, and social media was so new. People still didn't have any idea what it was. People are still buying Yellow Pages ads and buying telemarketing back in those days. And so, you know, the hardest part was putting up that media early on. And I remember for the first year, if it wasn't for Google Analytics, I would have quit because I'm like, nobody's commenting, nobody's engaging, and I'm just building content, and I have no idea if anyone cares. And sometimes you really don't know when the light switch is going to click on. Sometimes you don't know when when it's going to click or when you find that right sort of.
Yeah, and I wrote, I helped a company raise $16 million on Wall Street. And the way the group, there's a financier in New York, found me, I wrote an article in 2010, a blog post, put it on my blog, and then 4 years later, he read that article over the weekend and contacted me by email and asked some questions about it. And that's how I ended up working with him. And it would have, it was 5 years from the time start to finish. It was 5 years from, for that to happen. And so that's a long process. It takes a while, and you have no idea. I had no idea when I wrote the article originally it was going to result in that. But
yeah,
you just have to go through and do the work. I have hundreds and hundreds of blog posts over the almost 10 years on my site at timforrest.com, and you have no idea what's going to hit really before you post it. You have ideas, you think this is going to be great, but it's amazing sometimes what actually ends up working.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, it's just amazing the way you come across business and having that content out there, providing some of what you might think is proprietary. I think it's important to keep some state secrets, but sharing a lot of people with the fact that you're an expert, that you know what you know, and that there's a reason to hire you because of what you do. I think there's another aspect too that I think sometimes what customers are looking for is they are looking for leaders. They're looking for people that will help them do better at what they do. Even my audience that don't buy things from me, I would say, are technical customers, people that consume my content. They look for people to lead them, people to inform them, people to take whatever they think to the next level or open them up to new ideas. And there's a lot of that leadership that they're looking for. Even if they're customers, they're looking for people to lead them into getting more money, getting more business, being more successful. And they're curious as to what you can do to lead them in those directions. And that's where that content building, that content exposure makes such a huge difference in being able to, get
one of my clients. You're so right, Chris. One of my clients is a family-owned business, family-owned food business. They've been passed through the generations, and so I've been working with them for years. But several years ago, they asked me to run the family board, an annual board meeting they have with the family, and so I was looking forward to it. I was thinking, wow, this is going to be great. It's going to be a business meeting. We'll have everyone involved and talk about the business issue, the business opportunities, business issues. We'll go through. We'll have the power of all these minds around a table. And I had this image of a mastermind meeting that I was going to, and I was really excited about it. But oh my goodness, I get in there and they're asking me to lead the meeting, and it was because it's a family. The family dynamics came into it, and I was having to really, just what you said, lead the meeting and take control of the meeting at a lot of different times because it was evolving into family issues, brother and brother questions, and just so much was just family related and not really business related. And so it was my job. It was not necessarily, it was my job, but it was my focus really to keep everything on track and keep us focused on what it is that we were there to accomplish, and not to devolve into these family, the family issues of whether it was, vacation or other things. And after it was over a 5-hour meeting, I was totally exhausted after the meeting. It was a successful meeting, but it was so much more demanding. It wasn't a high level mastermind. This was a real challenge, and it was fun, but also it was extremely draining. And that's what they needed, though. Particularly at that time, they needed some leadership in that meeting. And so, yeah, you're right. That's what they're looking for. A lot of clients, that's what they're looking for. It's almost, I'd say, and a lot of times that's a majority of what they're looking for with consultants, with the business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just so amazing, and it's really important to even look at the content that you're creating and putting out there as an entrepreneur to really say, does this look like it's being successful? Look at your blog post. Is it being shared? Is it being commented on? is there real sort of engagement going on? I see some of these people that they put up content and their YouTube channel is dead. There's nothing going on. Somebody the other day made a comment to me. They go, well, I have some successful videos on YouTube. I went to the YouTube channel. There was 5 videos there. You're like, and they were like old, like 2 years old. And you're like, there's not even anything fresh up there.
Right.
And they were selling some huge packages of how great they are at video marketing. And you're just like,
oh, wow.
really? You haven't done any new videos for 2 years. And the videos you do have like 10 views. And so I've seen a lot of that over the years. I'll never forget. It's kind of funny. There was a company that built a local studio here in Las Vegas, and they wanted me to bring my YouTube channel to them, my podcast to them, and me start doing my shows at their facility here in Las Vegas. And they had enlisted a whole group of people that had gotten sucked into their dream that they wanted me to add to. And they're like, you can come to us and we'll help take your channel to the next level and blah, 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 blah. And we have all these successful people and our shows are just blowing up. Well, when I went to their YouTube channels, I found that the only people who were watching their videos were probably them watching them later to see what had happened. And literally, I'm not kidding you, some of their videos had 0 views.
Oh my gosh.
0 views. And then the other videos had like 1 or 2 views. So you knew it was them who'd gone back and watched the video to see how it played. And I remember saying to them, I said, you have all this content on the internet and no one is watching. And they literally argued with me and told me that I was out of my mind and I had no idea what I was talking about, even though, you know, I made a lot of money off of YouTube. They literally argued with me and said, no, we're putting up content. We know there's people watching. And I'm like, how do you know? And they're like, we know. And I'm like, how do you know? And they're like, because we make content. And I'm like, that doesn't, just because you make crap doesn't mean people use it.
Yeah. Exactly. It needs to solve a problem. And that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping there, if there's any people the people that are watching or listening to us, if there's any problems that we've addressed or talked about, I'd be more than happy to answer any emails or provide any value to any of your audience.
Yeah, you know, people can find you at timforrest.com. So there's
they can shoot me. They can send you an email, Chris, or if they want to send me an email, tim@timforrest.com. I'd be glad to bounce some ideas back for them if they have any needs there.
So I think we're about an hour on the show. So and I'd love to always have you on, Tim. You got a great mind and stuff. And you're brilliant, and we seem to be parallel in a lot of our ideas and concepts towards entrepreneurs. So let's have you on again. Give me your plugs so that we can get some plugs and people can go look you up on the interwebs.
TimForrest.com. And I'd love for people to see my seascape photography, and that's at islandsunrises.com. And that's been a friend of mine went to Afghanistan 5 years ago. And he sent me a note from Afghanistan. I said, you know what? I'm going to get up a little bit earlier and go take a picture of the sunrise over the ocean. And this is one of my canvases behind me. And I'm really passionate and happy. And, you know, the serendipity on that's taken me. I've been on, I've done national TV shows. I've met some incredible people and just had a lot of fun with that. But timforrest.com. And then also, we're talking about case studies. You can go through the case studies. And then I've got my blog there. You can bounce over to my food blog. And if there's anything people have a question about, specifically about consumer product marketing, if they'll send me an email, I'll be glad to do that. Also, I do a food intensive twice a year, and that has been very, very successful. There's an application on my site. We only do 7 companies. So if anyone wants to participate, and that's a 2-day event here at the beach, and I'd love to talk to people about the opportunity there. So thank you so much, Chris, about bringing me back here. And I like setting records, and I've almost, I've got some pretty cool records with different companies. So if we can come back a 3rd time, I love it, Chris. Thank you.
I think once we get to 3 or 5, once we get to like 5, you might get like a SNL 5-year guest host robe or something on it.
Okay. Well, I thought it was going to be easier. It's going to take a little bit more.
It might be 3 or 4. I don't know. I'd have to go back. I know
I'm up for it
twice, but we love having you on for what it's worth. And then you have an Instagram account also with those beautiful pictures you take of the ocean and the waves in the morning, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I do have Instagram Island Sunrises. So it's Instagram Island Sunrises as well.
They're really beautiful. I highly recommend it. Check it out. I love the ocean, and the photos are just amazing.
Thank you.
So anyway, thanks to our audience for tuning in. Thanks to Tim Forrest for being here. Be sure to check out his website and all that good stuff, and shoot him any questions, comments that you have, as well as on the show here on our channels. Go to youtube.com/Chris Voss. Hit that bell notification button. Be sure to subscribe, or else. And you know what? It's free. So that's one of the cool things. I mean, really, what else are you going to do the rest of this day? Subscribe to the podcast. You go to iTunes, Google Play, and tune in. Thanks to AT&T for sharing with us Samsung Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus, which are awesome phones. I love them. If you really hate yourself, go buy an iPhone from them, or look for the new Note 8, which I'm excited to get from AT&T, and all that good stuff. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Chris.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye. All right.